Hey, and welcome to the story of TwinSpreeio. The TwinSpreeio was a 1986 Honda Spree that I had shoved a Dio motor into. I got it in bits and pieces and kind of put it back together. But one day at work I noticed there was some large pieces of aluminum and scrap in, so I kind of commandeered them. Uh, I started kind of devising a way to make a twin cylinder. I'd always wanted a two-stroke twin, and I just so happened to have a blown Dio motor, so kind of made sense to try this out. It was modeled after a Yamaha RD or bottom end, so split case design with like a labyrinth seal. Um, just doweling there, pockets for the bearings. Used just OEM Honda Dio bearings. The cylinders were Peugeot Speed Fight 2. Went with liquid cooling just to make it a bit easier. Didn't have to deal with air cooling. And doweling for the case halves. Cylinder skirts are pocketed out here so I can actually put the cylinders down in place. And there's a whole lot of manual porting, the transfer and boost ports. You can also see the welded piece on the side for the other intake. Devconned in the oil pump hole and added a little aluminum ring as well. So the cranks were two stock crankshafts. One side was bored out so the variator side of the other one would push into it. And then the mechanical labyrinth seal. So there was the centerpiece put together with the bearings installed, and then I spot welded the end so that it wouldn't come apart. However, the first time I did it I wrecked the bearing, so I had to take it apart again, and then we had to weld it while the thing was underwater to help dissipate the heat. Yeah, so there it is, completely done. The lobes timed, everything assembled, balanced. This is adding in the intake on the flywheel side. And I had to also manually port that as well, just to get the holes for the intake together here, and rotating assembly in and assembled. It's getting pretty exciting at this point. I'm just mocking some stuff up here. So I had to go to a smaller ignition. First I tried a leaf fan one, which would have worked except for I dropped the flywheel on the floor and broke a magnet, and then had to toss that idea and bought a Tadia. So there's a dual pickup plate on there to drive. Each one goes to a CDI box 180 degrees out, so that's how I got spark 180 degrees out. A couple failed attempts on the ignition plates. so I finally got to start it. Just a quick start on the floor, and then started putting it in the bike. So I had to make a custom aluminum motor mount because the ears for the motor mounts were now way wider. Also, the shock was way out of alignment, so I had to make like a spacer that kind of kicked the shock off to the side. Plumbing was a bit of a nightmare as well. There's hoses everywhere. Coil mount. Hacked up China pipes that I just added about an inch to both of them just to get them to clear everything. Cut the side panels up a bit more. And a Bosch PAD 12 water pump. You can also see the mount I made for the shock there. And I put a giant wheel on the back off of a Mini. Bad idea, super heavy. I swapped it out later on. So there it is on the floor. I think at this point I actually drove it a bit. Another Spree for parts, and I always liked the baby blue, and the other problem I was having was the exhaust kept breaking. So I made a new header section that kind of got the pipes out of the way, which allowed me to make a better bracket, and then swapped over to the baby blue panels. I also made a crossbar and did a few other tweaks to it while it was apart. And I actually drove it about 200 kilometers in this setup in a scooter rally, so it actually worked. Like, I drove it quite a bit. And I had to also add a reservoir to the radiator because it would overheat. I didn't have enough of an airspace when it got really hot, so it needed expansion. And then I also downgraded the wheel to the lighter one, and you can see the stage 6 cylinders I picked up for super cheap, also Peugeot Speed Fight. But it was kind of at this point I had started another project and lost a little bit of interest in it. I actually ended up selling the motor to a cool dude, Grant. He's gonna put it in another Spree, but I think if I was to do another one, I'd probably make it in an AF34 cases and make it with the actual like lip seals, and also make it so I can take the crank apart using like two cranks that are like cut similar to what the photo is there. And I do happen to already have a set of AF34 cases cleaned up, so we'll see where this goes. Most likely another winter project. So that's the story of TwinSpreeio.